Well, the Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to rule on its proposal to restrict transgender people from serving in the military. This is the fourth time in recent months the administration has asked the highest court to bypass lower courts. Usually, the Supreme Court waits to get involved in a case until both a trial and appeals court have made rulings. The move would allow the ban to leapfrog the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which the president has claimed is biased against him. Last week, the court ruled against his administration's asylum policy, leading to a rare clash between the executive and the judiciary branches. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts weighed in, defending the courts from the president's attack. Julia Manchester is a reporter for The Hill. She joins me now from Washington. So, Julia, the president first announced this initial intention to ban transgender people from serving in the military more than a year ago. Do we know why all of a sudden this sudden sense of urgency?
Well, the timing here plays a key role in it. It comes months after President Trump officially moved the Supreme Court in the conservative favor with the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh and his nomination being approved. You also see his ongoing fight with the Ninth District Court, which is normally tends to be more of a liberal court, and other administrations have had to deal with that. And there's other courts like the Ninth District that may be more conservative in the country that Democrats and liberals have a problem with. But this is very unprecedented because this has led to a very public spat between the president and the judiciary, two co-equal branches of government. But in terms of the timing of this announcement, I think the president is trying to get as much done within the lame duck session of Congress, and Republicans can be able to ride on that success as well.
As I mentioned earlier, we've seen the president appear to politicize the courts. Earlier this week, he referred to one appeals judge as an Obama judge. That led to actually the Chief Justice, John Roberts, coming out. What are the potential political implications of this back and forth with the Supreme Court justice?
Well, this technically isn't the first time we've seen this happen before between President Trump and a Supreme Court justice. We remember that he's gone at it with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She eventually apologized for her remark because he was because she originally kind of went after him first. However, for the president, I think this could play politically well for him with his own base, because he has put a lot of emphasis on the judiciary and appointing as many conservatives as possible and trying to take what he calls liberal bias out of the judiciary. However, I think others watching this do view this with concern because, as I said, the president and the judiciary are both co-equal branches of government, but it seems like the president doesn't exactly view it that way.
And we also know on Thursday the president threatened a government shutdown if lawmakers failed to pass a measure on border security. So with less than a month left in this lame duck session, what do you think the likelihood really is that something gets done?
I think the likelihood right now is pretty low. We've seen Congress come together at the very last minute in some of these things. But, the president has really dug in his heels on this issue of border wall security and the fact that he wants his border wall to be built. And I think a lot of Republicans who have been elected to Congress, especially in the Senate and as well as in the House, have really campaigned on that as well, that the wall be built. However, I think Democrats, they've said we're not going to provide funding for his wall. Will provide funding for border security, but not for the wall. So I don't see much getting done in the future.
And on Friday, the White House sort of quietly issued its climate change report, which warns of worsening U.S. disasters. Are you getting any sort of reaction from the Trump administration on this one?
Well, I think the release of this really played into it and its timing, the Friday after Thanksgiving on a Friday before a weekend. So they clearly wanted to, keep this as much as quiet as they possibly could. However, White House Deputy Press Secretary Lindsay Walters said that essentially dismissed the report, said, it's not necessarily the Trump administration doesn't necessarily support its findings, that there's more work to be done. But this is the Trump administration's message on climate change all along. This doesn't necessarily come as a surprise to me. The presidents and the administration have pushed for non-renewable resources, rolled back a lot of those former Obama administration climate change renewable resource policies. So their reaction is no surprise here.
And finally, the president will be in Mississippi as we look forward on Monday. He's going to be stumping for Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. She's really faced backlash recently for comments that critics have really called as being racist. Should the president be using his political capital in this race?
You know, I think a lot of people, critics of the president, would say absolutely he should be using his political capital to go after comments like this and to, you know, try to bring civility and a calmer tone into the political discourse. However, with looking at his previous rhetoric, who he supported in the past, you know, I don't see this happening. It seems like the president wants as many Republicans as possible to be reelected, and he does often campaign on this message of non-political correctness, you know, that this is just the left attacking the right for, you know, not being politically correct. So I don't see the president actually speaking out against this. I see him continuing to support this.
Julia Manchester in Washington, thank you for joining us, Julia.
Thank you.